So, what if? What if you let go of the need to control everything? How peaceful would you feel inside? What if you were already one with your right answer? How secure would you feel? Let it be done unto you as you believe really means let it be done unto you as you imagine. And as you imagine it to be, so will it be. So did he say. And you know, when I was back in 1981 or 2, when I had gone through my divorce and I had time on my hands and I had money on my hands, and I thought, what should I do? And I asked what I should do, and I got to go to Cancun. So I went, oh, Cancun, that's cool. I've never done anything like that at all. If you knew me at that time, that was like the last thing I would do, go to a resort. So I went to Cancun, I went to the resort, I showed up at the place, and I saw these people out there on windsurfer boards. And they were having such a great time out there. And I thought, oh man, I want to do it. And I went up to the instructor and I said, oh, I want to sign up for a lesson. And she said, have you ever sailed? And I said, no, I never sailed. Oh, well, have you ever surfed? No. Oh, well, then you couldn't possibly windsurf. You'd have to be at least somebody who sailed or surfed. You couldn't possibly do that. And I thought, oh. And then we went on through the week, and there was rain going on during the week, and there weren't things to do, and all the jet skis were broken, and nothing was, and I wasn't having a great time. But I kept thinking about it, and then the sun came out. It was Thursday. There was only Thursday and Friday. Then we fly out Saturday, and I said, to heck with it. To heck with it. I'm going to untether myself. To heck with it, I'm going to untether myself. Together? To heck with it, I'm going to untether myself. Only I didn't know about it yet, because that was going to happen later. So what happened was, I went up to the woman, and she, I could tell she just didn't want to work hard. She didn't want to have another lesson. But I said, no, I'm going to do it. She said, oh, okay. So she showed me the rudiments of it, like half-heartedly, and then showed me the board and, gave it to me, whatever. And she said, I'll be back in an hour. So I got up on the board, and every time wind came up, it knocked me off the board. And after an hour, I got knocked off the board more times than I could possibly count. My arms were sore, my shoulders were sore, and I was just miserable. And she came up an hour later, and she said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm trying to learn how to do this. And she said, but why haven't you untethered your board? And she went down and reflected. Every time the wind would come up, it would catch, and it would knock me off. And as soon as but I've been practicing for an hour, so as soon as I caught some wind, I was able to do it. And I had the best time all that day and all the next day, because I had let go of the brainwashing that I had that I couldn't do it. And I untethered myself, and I moved myself into a new possibility. And what was that? That I could windsurf. But what about you? What are you holding on to? What are you tethered to? What false belief? Something in your childhood? How about your religious training? How about all those things that they told you in your childhood? Remember those things? And yet even the people who are teaching them don't necessarily believe them. They did a study, and I've shared this before. 80% of Protestant ministers are more progressive in their theology than their congregations think they are, and 70% are more progressive than their congregations are. That in an anonymous poll, that's Protestants. Now in Catholics, an anonymous poll of Catholic priests, 17% believed in reincarnation. It was the third most popular belief. The second most popular was heaven and hell, and the first most popular was there was no hell. You just kept going on. Whoa, what's that about? How about the guy who called me up and he said he was the minister of a mega church in another state, and he called me up. And he said, I've been watching your videos. I love it. I've been reading Eric Butterworth. I've been reading Charles Fillmore. I've been reading Wayne Dyer. I've been reading all these great things. And he said, if the elders in my church knew, they'd fire me. He says, I told my wife that I was having an affair behind my church's back. But here he was. And he even came here to visit. What is this? We know, you can untether yourself from your old false beliefs. They're holding you back. You were trained to think certain ways. You were trained to think that things were certain ways, but you don't have to live from them anymore. You can grow past them. Everybody's heard the story about why circus elephants have little tiny ropes. There was a guy who asked, why did the big circus elephant have a little tiny rope and the little tiny peg when it could easily pull it out? And it's because as a little baby elephant, when it was small and weak, They used this rope and they used a peg, and it tried and it couldn't get off. It couldn't let go. And so the circus elephant was brainwashed to think that it couldn't do it and stopped trying. So now it was big and it could easily be free. But think about it. It's probably because the elephant is so smart. The elephant is so intelligent, because they are very intelligent animals, that it learned and it believed this. Jesus once said, the children of this world, meaning the less evolved souls, are more intelligent or better off than the children of light. He was trying to say, stop overthinking things so much. If it was a dumb animal, like some of our dogs, they would easily pull themselves out. But it was a smart animal. So because you evolved to the point that you are, these things, you've got a strong mind. You've got a powerful mind. But it's time to unbrainwash yourself. It's time to unthink the false beliefs that you've been thinking from. You can let go of those false beliefs. But how do you do that? Funny that you should ask. I always like to give you something to do. People go to churches because it makes me feel good, or I'm inspired, or the minister, socialized with me. But this isn't that church. I'll give you their phone numbers if you want them. This church, you got to do some work. And in this church, here's one of the things you have to do: the question and answer process. Ask questions and get answers. Do some journaling. The agitated energy process. Write down those things, those false beliefs, and find out what's really running you. What are those tethers that you're holding on to? And they're going to be found right on the table outside of Fellowship Hall. So pick one up. But there was a woman who called me several years ago. She'd been a member of our board many years before. And when I'd met her, before she really started practicing these principles, she was she was a real estate agent, but she was, marginal, having a hard time. But by the time I'd left, and for the time thereafter, she became a real estate developer. She became very successful. But she called me up on the phone, I don't know how many years later, 5, 6 years later, after I'd left, and she said, Greg, I'm just in a stuck place. Right now, I practice these principles. I visualize and affirm and tithe and forgive, and I do all these things, and everything's stuck. I haven't made a sale. I haven't been involved in a transaction for 8 months, and it's starting to get a little bit tight, and I'm wondering, what am I doing wrong? And I said, I don't know, but I got a process for you, because I hadn't had that when I'd been with her. And so I led her in the question and answer process. She asked, what should I do? What is it I'm supposed to do? Because she knew there was something that she was supposed to do. So she asked the question, what do I need to do? Went in the space of I don't know. She said, I don't know. I just see a picture of this old neighborhood near where I live, and I'm supposed to be involved in that somehow. And I said, well, and so she asked more questions, and so she started to look into that neighborhood, found out that there was a restoration project she'd get involved in. She ended up in such a big deal, so many millions of dollars of commissions, that she retired and spent the rest of her life, that I know of, working pro bono to do historical preservation as a volunteer, because she didn't need to work anymore. Now, what's that about? Sometimes, you drop the dollar and you get the $100 bill. Sometimes you have to let go of one thing and open another, but you got to let go of that false belief that's limiting you, that you're limited by your circumstances. Think about that person, place, or thing in your life that you resented or were so hurt because it left your life, and then think to yourself, thank God for that. As Martha Creek said, I was spared. Let's say that together in her voice. I was spared. I was going through something once a few years ago. I had 3 big rejections, betrayals, negative experiences. Wasn't fair. It was wrong. I felt terrible. And I've shared before, I was walking around like this because my neck went out. And Lynn suggested, look up in Louise Hay's book, Heal Your Life, what a stiff neck was. So a stiff neck was, she said, it could be caused by not looking at things from all sides, only having one idea and staying stuck on it. And the idea was I was a victim and everything was whatever. So okay, so I started doing an affirmation about it. I look at things from all perspectives, and I said, and what came to me was, nobody and no thing has ever left your life that belonged there. Think about that. Nobody and no thing has ever left your life that belonged there. And what came to me in meditation was a reverie where I started thinking about disappointments at different points in my life where I felt rejected or something didn't work out the way I wanted. I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't get my due. and played it out as if it had happened, what would have happened? It would have been disastrous. It would have been so complicated. It would have had all these things, and it wouldn't have worked out, and it wouldn't have been good. And I went, oh my gosh. And so I was willing, is it worth a momentary hurt feeling to let go of something that you not need anyway and open up to something new? You say, but I want to be secure. I want to be comfortable. I don't want to go through things, that I don't like. But it's worth that momentary letting go, because nobody and no thing in your life ever left that belongs there. And think about it. Go back into your life. Think about it. Would you really want it? I was spared. Together? I was spared. Once I got that, once I realized that truth, my neck went pop, 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 and I was fine, and I ended up here. So where in your life do you need to let go of conditioned beliefs about the way things are supposed to work out, or the limitations of things? I had a situation once, this is many years ago, and I didn't share this at 9 o'clock, but I found out things were going on that should not be going on in a church, and I didn't know what to do, and I couldn't see any way I was going to be able to take care of it, because there was a lot of politics involved, and I didn't know what to do. And so I finally I took this process, question and answer process, found on the table right outside of Fellowship Hall. And I asked, what do I do about it? And I saw a guy. I saw his face, and he was somebody who only came on the meditation on Tuesdays, in the class that we had. I hadn't really talked to him. I didn't even know his name. So I went up to him, and it was a problem that we had that had to do with insurance and risk management and things like that. And I said, do you know anything about financial? It was financial. Do you know anything about financial things? And he says, well, yes, as a matter of fact, I own a bank. Oh. And he was the financial controller of a city of 150,000 people before that. And he was like, it was like, oh my gosh. And I told him in confidence what the situation was. He said, well, that's funny. I know a guy. And this man, and when he learned about this, was so taken by the fact that the church was being taken that he offered his services pro bono. He wrote up a 36-page report, and he did all of it for free. It was worth thousands of dollars, all because of this guy, and this guy ended up being our board president. And the whole thing happened without firing a shot. The other thing that happened was, what do I do with my feelings of outrage? And what do I do? And the words came to me, that hideous strength. That hideous strength, that was familiar. And then I remembered it was a C.S. Lewis novel, the third in the Paralanda trilogy. And I'd read it in high school, or maybe in college. And I forgot what it was all about, but I went ahead and read it. And it was about people that were dealing with a negative situation and how they dealt with it, which was basically, they all withdrew from the negative situation, all got together and supported each other and did their spiritual practices, focused on what they could do, focused on their spiritual work, and stopped trying to fix everything out there. And so I stopped trying to fix it, and it all worked out without any effort, without any stress, without any strain, without any conflict. It was beautiful. Now, what is this about? It's about untethering yourself, unhooking yourself from the belief that you're limited, that there's not enough to go around, that you're not going to be able to get an answer. Ask yourself, what are some of the things? What are some of the things? I've got to stress and strain and suffer in order to succeed, because that's what my daddy told me, or my mommy told me, or my priest told me, or my minister, or my whoever told me. It's not true. You have to work, you have to be intentional, but that I have to suffer to succeed. Oh my gosh, I remember when I came into a church that was in probably the worst financial shape I've ever seen. They had hidden the information for me, and then I show up there and I find out, oh my gosh, and I had to actually float them on my credit card in order to get the bulletins printed. But here we were, and the board treasurer came up to me so proud. She had a list of affirmations, an entire page, and she said, I do these every week, and just at the last minute, when I finally finish the last affirmation, the money shows up miraculously. and I worked so hard. And I said, great, that's so wonderful. You've been so faithful. Now put it away and take this as your one affirmation. It is easy and natural for me to prosper. Together, it is easy and natural for me to prosper. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be diligent, but it was like too much work. And as soon as she did that, things started opening up and the place just turned around. And nobody ever had to stress again. You know, would you like to live a life in which you don't have to be living in fear all the time? Then ask yourself the question, what would I feel like if I wasn't afraid? What would my life look like if I wasn't feeling anxiety? But you say that's too abstract. Well then, what would my posture be like? What would be the look in my eyes? How would I breathe? If I already had my answer. And then you say that's just a little tricky thing, but look, it's like, what's it going to take for that elephant to be free? It doesn't have to be a big deal. You just have to be intentional and work with it. You have to be intentional and work with it. And that means you're willing to work with a new principle. You're willing to pick up something new, work with it, and let go of that part of yourself that's always arguing against it, saying, oh no, that's not going to work. Oh no, I can't believe this. This is going to be so hard. But instead, move with it, flow with it, and trust. Trust that that aspect of your being that is ready to blossom forth is coming out. Trust that you don't have to be limited any longer in your consciousness by the circumstances in your life or by the people in your life, about what everybody else is thinking, and you don't have to be in a stuck place anymore. You can trust that things are going to work out for your highest good. You say, but it's just my imagination. Your imagination is the key, is the way that this faith is activated. Letting go of judgment. We talk about false judgment, letting go of false judgment. Jesus talked about don't judge unless you want to be judged. He said, don't judge so that you won't be judged. You'll be sentenced to the same sentence that you sentence others, and by whatever standard you measure, you'll be measured. Why are you looking at the little splinter in your brother's eye, but you don't notice the big log in your own eye? And how can you say to your brother, hey, let me get that splinter out of your eye with that log sitting there in your own eye? You phony, first let the log out of your own eye, and then you can see about getting the splinter out of your brother's eye. Now, we often think about this, about judging other people, but it's often about judging appearances, judging according to our presumptions and our assumptions about reality. I let go of my presumptions and assumptions about reality. Together? I let go of my presumptions and assumptions about reality. And if you're willing to do this a little bit every day, work with a few principles, you'll find that things will work out for your highest good. You'll find that you will judge with right judgment. And what's the difference between being judgmental and having discernment, seeing things as they really are? Seeing things according to false judgment is judging according to appearances, but discernment simply sees things as they are and knows that there's a higher truth. And you can say to yourself, I lift up into my higher truth. Together? I lift up into my higher truth. And then assume that if I lift up into my higher truth, what do I feel like? How does this life look to me? What are my emotions? What are the circumstances looking like to me? What kind of look is in my eyes, my posture? Work with these things, and you'll find that good things are going to happen. Well, I just get the feeling that this is challenging people. I get the feeling that this is pushing people and pushing people's buttons. And I'm saying right now that if you open yourself and get out of your complacency, yes, complacency, and put a few things to work and let go of your assumptions that you're operating from, things will shift for you. Stop judging by false appearances and know that there is something opening up for you. I only speak like that because it's time to break up the old thought form. It's time to shatter the old belief. It's time to move into a new place. But it's waiting for you, but you got to let go of the dollar bill to get the $100 bill. And it's not about money. It's about moving into a new consciousness. Remember, the Harvard study showed that they had to change their belief system first before they had the spontaneous remission or the miraculous healing. It was true in absolutely every case. You have to let go of the false belief. There's so much more I can talk to you about, but we're supposed to do the exercise now because it's just time. It's time to get out of our heads, to get out of that elephant consciousness that's too smart to let go of the thing and get into that dog consciousness that'll just rip it off, okay? So what I want you to do is pull out this little thing that's in your bulletin. It's called the Prospering Power of Prayer Unexpected Income Program. And we do one of these programs every year. Now, somebody thought it was the same program as last year. No, that was the Prospering Power of Love. This is the Prospering Power of Prayer, which is another book by Catherine Ponder. And Catherine Ponder's books are very, very powerful. You know, when I was in ministerial school, if you'd said Catherine Ponder to me, I would have just turned up my nose because I was way too spiritual for Catherine Ponder. I mean, it was all about, practices of affirmations and visualizations and things like that. And I was so far beyond that because, I meditated. So what happened to me was, I was invited to a friend of mine's class on a Catherine Ponder book. And on the way there, I had just been given leadership of a church on weekends, and my friend who was teaching the class on the Catherine Ponder book, which I, of course, was not looking forward to, said to me, well, Catherine Ponder teaches that you should just speak the words. So I said, okay, thank you, God, for my perfect car to get me to this place, because my car I was in was lousy. And I showed up in the class, and a woman said, I was given a car for free. And so I silently said, that car, could it be free? And this woman looked across the circle from me and said, you got that church in Salina, Kansas, didn't you? I said, yeah. How's your car going to get there? I said, I don't know. Well, I got a car in my driveway. I just bought a new car. You want it? And then the next day I gave my car away to somebody who needed to drive less far. So, speaking the word. And then, just in the same period of time, a woman named Martha Judici confronted me. How many people know Martha Judici, the Unity minister at Unity Village Chapel years ago? She and I did not get along at all. And she was one of my teachers, and she thought I was way too abrasive, and I thought she was way too abrasive, and I don't know who was more abrasive. So, anyway, she walks up to me in the middle of the hall, and she says, I'm going to do a Catherine Ponder series on Sunday mornings for 6 weeks, and I want you to play and you're going to play the organ. And I said, I'm going to play the organ? And I was ready to just say no, and I couldn't get the word out of my mouth. I couldn't. It wouldn't happen. Has it ever happened to you? And so I said, I'll pray about it, Martha. And Martha said, yeah, you go ahead and pray about it, but you're going to do it. I went into the Peace Chapel, and I was loaded for bear. I said, okay, all right, Sound Unity Peace Chapel. I know that's where God speaks to you, and I just got, do it. And just do it. It was all over me, do it. So I did it. And I knew I didn't want to do it because she had a hymn in the middle of this thing that was going to be the hymn that we sang every week called Money, Money, Money by Bill Prevost. Now, you'll never hear it in this church because it goes money, 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 lots and lots of money, coming to me now, oh yes, it's mine, all mine. And that's just how it starts. And it was so crass. I was too spiritual. But I did it, and feeling this way the whole time, and after 6 weeks, my income tripled. And I was like, okay, I get it. Untether yourself, get off your highfalutin attitude, get off of your stuff, and start to open up to something new. So every year we usually use a Catherine Ponder book. Why? Because she boils things down to their essences. She boils things down to their basis. It's all practical. It's very down to earth, but it's really good stuff. Now, I'm going to ask you to take the prayer treatment for unexpected income, which is in the middle of the back page. So look in the middle panel, and if it has an address part, just turn it over, because it's on that side. And let's just say this together. Together? My life is blessed with infinite abundance. The abundance of God is my infinite resource. I am now in the flow of abundant blessings. Good is now flowing into my life through unexpected avenues. God is actively at work in my life, blessing me. I open my mind to receive my good. I expand my capacity to give and receive my good. Wonderful, positive, surprising things are now happening for me. With God as my source, I am amazed at my rich abundance. I give freely and fearlessly into life, and life multiplies and returns my gift many times over. Many rich blessings now manifest in expected and unexpected ways. God is now providing for me in wondrous ways. I am grateful, and so it is. Deep breath and let it out. And remember the words of Jesus where he said, let it be done unto you as you believe. The word believe is really imagine. Let it be done unto you as you imagine it to be. So take another deep breath and let go into that childlike attitude that would splash and play. And set aside any pieces of paper in your hands, because you know a 2-year-old playing in a pool wants to play with things. So just open your hands and take that attitude of becoming as a child. What does a child see? What does a child think? If I had the attitude of a 2-year-old child splashing in an inflatable pool, how would I look at things? What would my heart feel like if I had that 2-year-old heart? And now with that playful attitude, just ask, what would my life look like to me if it worked? How would I feel if I knew that everything was already in divine order? Feel that feeling. If I had faith, what would my heart feel like? What would my posture be like? If I had confidence, what would be the look on my face? If I was at peace, how soft would be my eyes? How relaxed would be the space around and behind my eyes? If I already knew my right answer, what would I know? If my higher self, my spiritual self, was in charge, how would my skin tingle, and how would my smile look, and how would I breathe? Keep playing with this. If I knew that I was already one with my right answer, what would be the feeling in the core of my being? How would my energy flow? If my body experienced healing, what would that feel like right now? If my mind were lifted up, what would be my thoughts? If I were filled with joy, how would I feel? If I am already one with my higher self, what would be the experience of my body, my emotions, my mind? And stay with this. When your mind wanders, come back to your question. What would my body feel like? How would I feel? What would I think? If I released and I let go, how would that feel inside me? If I stopped trying to control, how would my shoulders relax? everything was in divine order, how would I look at things with new eyes, listen with new ears? And if I got along with the people in my life, if I loved my neighbor as myself, what would that be like? We can always come back to this. Let it be done unto you as you imagine. It is so. And so we're going to give in a spirit of surrender. We're going to give a spirit of abundance. And we're going to imagine that as we give, we receive. So put yourself in that childlike attitude again. And as you're giving your gift, I give in the spirit of abundance and I receive abundantly. Together? I give in the spirit of abundance and I receive abundantly. And silently. Oh, one more time. I give in the spirit of abundance and I receive abundantly. And so it is. Amen.